to order.
Mr. Beveridge?
Here.
Mr. Boyd?
Here.
Ms. Kahn?
Here.
Mrs. Felter? Here. Ms. Kuhn?
Here.
Mrs. Steele? Mr. Wycliffe?
Here. I'd like to make a quick announcement before we do the pledge. Tonight, we have a very special Pledge of Allegiance leader. I'd like to welcome Diana Vincent to come forward to lead us in the pledge. Diana is the interpreter at Olathe West High School, and she just recently received her U.S. citizenship. So, Diana, would you lead us in the pledge? Thank you so much, and congratulations. Dr. McMullen?
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's Olathe Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, we feel it is important that we review the importance of conducting a productive and orderly meeting. This meeting is designated for the board to work with the superintendent and staff to conduct the work as outlined in the agenda. Please understand that patrons attending the meeting do so solely in an observatory role. Out of respect for everyone in attendance, we request that audience members not speak, yell, or give applause during the meeting. This ensures the board, staff, and other attendees are able to listen and understand the business conducted. Anyone disrupting the meeting in any capacity will be asked to leave and may lose the opportunity to attend future meetings. Thank you again for attending, and we'll now proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Dr. McMullen. We'll move into the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Beveridge, a second by Mr. Boyd.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mrs. Felter?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe?
Yes. All right, motion carries 7-0. Moving on, recognitions and awards for the month. Maggie?
Good evening. I am thrilled to be able to recognize two very deserving teachers tonight. I'd like to welcome all of our distinguished guests. We're going to start tonight with Kevin Holson, Olathe West High School technology education teacher. Kevin, if you could come forward along with Principal Jay Novacek. Kevin was named the Technology Student Association Advisor of the Year for the 21-22 school year. He was honored at the association's 44th Annual National Conference in June. The Technology Student Association is a national organization of students engaged in STEM. This award is designed to recognize the achievement and contributions of its members and others who support the organization. Congratulations to you, Kevin. Congratulations. And it's a bit of an Olathe West night, so Jay, if you could stay at the front, that'd be great. Next, I'd like to invite Jordan Boyd, West Social Studies teacher, to come forward. Jordan was selected by the National History Day organization as the 2022 Teacher Award nominee for Kansas. National History Day is a year-long academic program focused on historical research, interpretation, and creative expression for 6th through 12th grade students. Winners are selected by a committee of educators and historians. The panel considers commitment to student development, creativity in the classroom, and inspiring students to engage in history. Congratulations, Jordan. And that concludes our recognitions tonight.
All right, we'll move into presentations. First will be our school spotlight, Frontier Trail Middle School.
Thank you, Board of Education and distinguished guests, for letting me share a little bit about Frontier Trail this evening. Last time I was at the board meeting was a few years ago, and I brought the jazz band that night. But tonight you just get me and a few slides and a few videos to tell you all the great things going on at Frontier Trail. Frontier Trail is rich in traditions. The school opened in 1989. Currently we have 700 students. One of the things that's a part of that is our academic achievement, and going back looking at things that many of the schools achieved in Olathe in the 90s were the Blue Ribbon Awards, and then Standard of Excellence, and then now just other measures of achievement. But one of the things I think I have appreciated and like so much about Frontier Trail is just the way our students are involved in extracurricular. And one of the things, when I mean extracurricular, it's all the things that happen kind of after the 3:10 bell, with kids involved in Tubo during the day and web, and after school with theater and athletics. One of the things I love is our staff has always been really flexible in letting our kids be involved in lots of things that overlap, and that takes a lot of teamwork. And for example, we just finished volleyball season, and we have some girls that were in volleyball and cheer, or volleyball and dance, and I love that about Frontier Trail. Like I said, we're about ready to finish the fall season. We had 65 students out for cross country, 77 in football, which for middle school football, that's a pretty high number, 32 in volleyball. Looking at our enrollment, we had over 350 kids in one of our music programs, and 86 kids just received a part in the fall musical, Moana. So they're very excited about that. Dr. Yeager and SLT back in July asked schools to focus on these three priorities: academic accountability, climate and culture, and community engagement. And I'm gonna just kind of hit each one of those briefly tonight as they pertain to Frontier Trail. Starting with academic accountability or academic achievement. You know, our work is focused on our priority standards and setting SMART goals each week in our PLCs. And we use a variety of assessments, but formative and summative is kind of the way we really track our student growth. We have the middle level, we have teaming, which allows for weekly PLCs, and so that's where we look at data and really work together to monitor student growth and celebrate that growth. But one of the things that we added last year was an intervention time, and it's between first and second hour. And you've heard us talk as educators about MTSS, and last year we added literacy, and I'm excited this year we were able to add math. And just to kind of share, we administer screeners to identify learning gaps or missed prerequisite skills, and then we reteach in those academic areas. And we call that intervention time at Frontier Trail When, What I Need. And I'm just going to share a video here, kind of tells you a little bit about what that looks like at our school.
Well, it's really just like a small group of kids that sometimes we get together with the teacher and we have more time to talk to the teacher about things that we've struggled with over the past.
We're able to screen about 80 of our children here at Frontier Trail from 6th through 8th grade. And of those 80 kids, 38 of them qualified for our MTSS intervention. The MTSS intervention is about a 30-minute block of time outside of our actual classes. And so it's awesome because during our 50-minute classes, it's really hard to pull those small groups. So with those 38 kids that were screened and qualified for our program, our biggest accomplishment, I think, is that 84% of them increased their district assessment scores over the course of the year. So our English department felt really, really good about that.
Some of the screening resources that we use is Mastery Connect and FastBridge. With those two resources, we take a look at when students have met mastery or not met mastery. We also look at their overall performance as a percentile, and we look at which students actually meet those needs for our small grouping. And then we extend that into looking at the alignment of our standards. We've had a really great opportunity to work with our instructional coaches, our MTSS support specialists to help us figure out how to break those down. We've reached out to our SPED department, and they've been really helpful with showing us how to look at those standards in different ways and how they build. So for example, as a 6th grade teacher, I am now looking at 3rd, 4th, 5th grade standards, and as I'm teaching that then in my classroom on a daily basis, when things come up, I'm able to apply those. So it's really been an awesome opportunity, and we're looking forward to extending that.
Personally, I think it's helped me because I thought I was really good at, right now we're working on fractions, so I thought I was pretty good at fractions. But in 6th grade, it got much harder, and I didn't realize it. So otherwise, it's really helped me a lot to get better at those.
As a teacher, the energy and the excitement that has been added into our PLC has been amazing just to see that grow. We've had the opportunity for a lot of vertical teaming as we've been discussing some of the standards and how to break those down, which we're already seeing carry over into our classroom on a daily basis.
The fact that the kids came every day, we were able to build those relationships with them, and we just love that part of it. And so we are looking so forward to that process again this year.
I'm going to move to climate and culture, and that's an area I think that starts with all of us at Frontier Trail. One of the things we've worked really hard as a staff to make those relationships, those connections with our students, and I think it's just important to make it with each other. I'm just going to give you a few examples. High Five Fridays is where kids line the doorways. Usually it's Stuco or web leaders, and just give high fives as kids are entering the building. Our counselors started something the last few years during lunch we call it the kindness table, and kids are encouraged to write notes of kindness to peers. Character recognition we do each month. We focus on these 6 areas: honesty, empathy, grit, effort, positivity, and self-advocacy. For a long time at Frontier Trail, I've had what's called the Principals Advisory Council. And so that's just a way for me to pull a group of kids together and let them talk to me about climate. Web mentors are our 8th graders who mentor our 6th graders throughout the year. Of course, every school has Stuco, but those are the kids that organize all our spirit days. And I love at Frontier Trail that our staff always participates in that. And then the last one, music. A lot of times our kids in band and choir will stand in front of the building or inside the door and play for the kids as they enter the building. But probably my favorite is Fridays. One of our teachers gets on a scooter, and you need to come over and see it sometime, and he blasts cool kid music as kids are coming in the building on Friday mornings as they're going to first hour, and that's always a big highlight. As far as staff building climate and culture, I've found over the years as a principal, it takes just a lot of little things. It doesn't need to be one big event. So staff cookouts, Friday treat days. I was trying to figure last year, I think the Thanksgiving meal at Frontier Trail where we all come together and eat has been a 20-year tradition, 20 plus years. I love that every year. Fun contest around the holidays. I have weekly shout outs we do in each staff bulletin. Of course, the week of May, all the schools celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. I think our team builders have been really good for school climate, where we go, one of our faith-based partners is Colonial Presbyterian, and we've had them for about 12 years, and we'll go out and work in their garden as a staff. That's been great for climate. And then going and working with Mission Southside, that's been a lot of fun. Recently, we had some staff from the district office come over and spend a little time in Frontier Trail. Later that day, I received an email, and I just love sharing this because they said, students were friendly, happy, and they felt a good vibe in the building. And I think that's a good way to kind of tell you what climate and culture is like at Frontier Trail. Community engagement, I'm just going to share a few things. We start the year in August before the kids even get in the building. We always have a 6th grade welcome back assembly. It's an ice cream social, but we also have kind of like a mini PEP assembly, so 6th graders get to see what that's like. This year we had parents help with Suicide Prevention Week. Frontier Trail parents are always great to help as chaperones on the many music tours and field trips. Of course, we have a large theater program at Frontier Trail, and so it takes parents to help with that. Athletic events. We started last year having some parents Zoom into the classroom, almost like a virtual field trip, but they shared about their job as it was pertinent to what we were learning in class. Last Friday, we had what was called Guest Chef, and we had some parents come in, and in the culinary class, they were the chef for the day. That was a lot of fun. And then we're, like some of the other middle schools, starting a Father's Club. And I'm going to kind of wrap up tonight just sharing really just one last video, a little bit about climate and culture, and a little bit about engaging the community.
Instrument playing is really fun. I'm in the jazz band, and it is the best part of my day on Thursday mornings. I have to get up early, but jazz is really fun to play. I play the bass, so the rhythm section is really fun. You have a lot of friends in band because there's 200 of us, so odds are you're gonna have some friends in it. And it's really nice knowing your section, like it's a little tiny group in front of a big group, I guess you'd call it.
And I really like orchestra because I just love making music. Playing my violin is something that it makes me feel a lot. I really love that. And also whenever I make mistakes, it's like I can see myself grow as I learn to do songs and stuff like that. And I just love making music, I guess.
WEB stands for Where Everyone Belongs, and I really like it because like the last Friday of every month we get to go see some sixth graders and we check up on them, see how they're doing, how they like Frontier Trail.
Just having like just playing and knowing that there's so many people cheering you on. It's great.
We had parents who stood at every entrance to our building that week and just greet students, high five them, encouraging them to have a great day. I think the highlight was we had a group of parents who made their own t-shirts about Suicide Prevention Week and We Matter, and it's so great to see you here, and they had bags of candy and were handing them out, and they were so happy and so fun, and it was such a great start to the day to see them just so excited welcoming all of our students.
Thank you. Let me share. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Any questions from the board?
I just have a comment. I always appreciate your dedication to acknowledging the 9/11 anniversary every time it comes around in such a big way. It involves the fire department and the big flag, and my kids always talk about that, and it stands out in their minds. So thank you for that very much.
Well,
You do a
we
great
had
job.
it scheduled this year, and the day before found out they were not able to send the truck. So it was really
Every other year counts.
Yeah, I was really disappointed because we really love that tradition. So.
Yeah, thank you for that.
That's great. Others?
Might give a piece of feedback. I hear a lot from the parents, and the one thing I hear regularly that you may not hear is how approachable you are, how approachable your staff is, and how they find that you're always open to listen to them. And from those parents, you may not be telling me that, but they tell me that. I just thought you should hear that, because I hear that a lot, and I've never really met you, but when people say, you should meet, and I just thought I'd let you know that. Because sometimes it's important to have someone else say it.
Yes.
So,
Appreciate that.
give you and your team the feedback.
Thank you.
That's great. Others? Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you.
Invite Dr. Reeves up for student enrollment information.
I may say, as Dr. Reeves is headed to the podium there, that, it's typical this time of year that we'd come to the board and kind of give you a high-level enrollment number. But one of the things, as I thought about it and visited with Dr. Reeves and others, is there's a lot more to our enrollment as a school system than just the number of students enrolled in our system. And so what you'll see tonight is probably the most comprehensive look that you've probably been presented as a board in terms of who are our students in the district, what are our numbers like in terms of ELL, students receiving ELL support, students receiving special education supports, things like that. So Dr. Reeves is going to share a great deal of information about our enrollment with you. Know that if there's things that you see that you want more information about, we'd be happy to gather additional information and bring that back to the board as well. But you'll see more than you're used to seeing for these are kind of our update on enrollment tonight.
That's Dr. Yeager's polite way of saying make sure you stay within your time. So this is pleased to have the opportunity to just share a little bit about enrollment in Olathe. And so we'll start off with just kind of some high level, what we had on our official count day of September 20th this year compared to last year, change. And then I also included some of the projections that we used for staffing it in the spring of last year. So you can kind of see enrollment is down overall about 227 students from our September 20th, 2021 count. And then there's a breakdown from each level below that. A couple of items to note, our incoming class, so that would be the class of 2035, has 1,900 students, a little over 1,900 students. Our graduating class will exit about 2,355 students. And so our incoming class is smaller than our exiting class. And I believe that's probably been that way maybe for the last 5 or 6 years or so. So seen a little bit of a trend that way. Our current largest class is the class of 2025, which is our sophomores. And again, our smallest class is the incoming kindergarten class. A couple of things I think to note, our virtual enrollment last year had 321 students, and 60% of those students returned this year, which is about 284 students in our K-11. So we welcome those students back. I think some of the things that, as you think about maybe why our kindergarten class is trending smaller compared to our exiting classes, there's a lot of factors that play into that. Birth rate has gone down. I think Olathe's home market is obviously, like all of Johnson County, been pretty tight. And so some of the homes that are available are not necessarily always those starter homes that draw new families in. So they may be families that bring kids kind of in those middle grades. So we're going to take a real quick look at just some of our demographic information. This is just the race and ethnicity of the makeup of our students, those 29,000 students. They're pretty split. They're split pretty evenly, excuse me, across male and female, and we'll come back to that a little bit as we talk about some of our student groups. And then our participation in our lunch program. Currently, we serve about just a little under 9,000 students with our free and reduced population for students. That's about 30% of our overall enrollment. It's an increase, or has gone up about 10%. It was a little over 20% last year. It's the highest participation rate we've had to date. We're going to spend a little bit of time looking at some of the grade levels or the different levels. Our early childhood department serves about 1,000 students. That's at our 2 early childhood centers, Heartland and Harmony, and then also 19 of our elementary buildings that have early childhood programs in them. Those programs include Head Start, Jump Start, early childhood special education. At the elementary level, our buildings range in size from about 158 students to 591. Our largest schools are listed there. Our 4 largest schools are listed. And then our median schools are Indian Creek and Washington, and they sit right around that 350 range. Middle schools range in size from 592 to about 753. 2 of our largest are PRT and Frontier. 9 out of our 10 schools are within 100 students of each other, which just means that they're all right around the same size, which is great. High schools range from a little over 1,600 to a little over 2,000, with the largest being Olathe North at 2,081 students. Olathe North High School, I should say Olathe North is the 7th largest high school in the state, and then all of our high schools fall in that top 20 largest schools. And then we also have lots of alternate education programs for students in grades 1st through 12th. Programs include programs out at JDC, CLC, Mill Creek, Post, Step Up, Hope, SOAR, and OCL, which is off-campus learning. And those numbers in parentheses there are the numbers of students served at this year in those programs. So by level, looking at growth, our early childhood centers both have increased in enrollment. Harmony at 31 and Heartland at 14. We have 7 schools at the elementary level that experience growth of 15 or more students, and they're listed there with the numbers of increase. But in addition to that, we also had 10 schools that increased enrollment from 0 to 14 students, or 1 to 14 students. Our middle school, the largest growth was PRT with 29 students, and then 3 schools also grew by 10 or fewer students. Our high school with the largest growth was Olathe North with 114 students. but 3 of our other high schools also grew somewhere between 15 and 45 students. And then our alternate education programs, Step Up and Hope, have both increased by 13 students in their respective programs. Declining enrollment, some buildings that have experienced a decline. The most notable at elementary are the 3 that are listed there. Again, I use kind of 15 as a marker. And then we also have 16 schools that decreased enrollment somewhere between 14 and 1. Middle schools, 4 of our middle schools have a decline in enrollment, and then 2 additional also had fewer than 10 students. And then our high school with the most notable decline was Olathe South, which was 105 students. So we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at some of our student groups. And the first is our English language learners. And so to start, we have a little over 5,500 students who speak another language in addition to English. And that represents about 90 plus languages in our district and 107 countries that they represent. That includes students who have exited ELL or maybe didn't qualify for services on the front end. The second piece of data that we'll look at is the number of students that we're actively serving, and that's 3,331 students as of our count day. It's an increase of about 209 students over 2021. So of those 3,300 students, a little over 2,500 attend an ELL site program, a school site program. 909 of those students have been in the U.S. Schools or in our district for less than 2 years. That's a pretty significant chunk of students who've been here fewer than 2 years. And 196 of those students we would call newcomers, and that means they have been here for less than a year of education. So that's a good chunk of those 2,500 students that we're providing language support services for as they enter our U.S. schools. A little over 1,000 of those students received direct services through an ELL teacher or an ELL aide, and the students that we are currently serving represent about 70 countries. So we have a lot of diversity, and we have a lot of culture in our district that we spend a lot of time celebrating and getting to know those students. The next piece that we're going to take a look at is some special education information. So to start off, our special education population has about 5,300 active students, so students that are actively receiving services. The split between male and female is a little discrepant from our current district-wide data. So 64% of our students receiving special education services are male, with 36 of them being female. The other piece that we'll look at really quickly is just our demographic makeup. And so this is similar to the previous graph, is fairly representative of our student population. And then thought we'd spend a little bit of time just talking about some comparison of students receiving services to our total enrollment. So you have a demographic breakdown or race and ethnicity breakdown, and it will show you the percentage of students that represent our district population compared to our students receiving special education services. And for the most part, it's fairly representative. Our multiracial and our Caucasian are a little bit different, but for the rest of our population, it's pretty representative of our overall school population. And then when we take a look at students receiving special education compared to their gender, what you'll see here is that males are served at a higher rate than females, also at a different rate compared to their female counterparts, but then also compared to our overall population. Some items of interest out of our special education data. Again, those 5,300 students, of those 646 are gifted students, identified as gifted students. That is about 12% of the total population of students receiving services, which leaves about 88 for non-gifted students. That 646 represents about 2% of our district's overall population. And then we have about 722 students who are ELL students, who are identified as ELL students and also receive special education services. We have an increase of 469 students over our 2021 data. So when we look at the gifted data from the previous year, it's the 2% of the special ed population isn't vastly different than last year. We have added 38 students, but our enrollment has gone up as well. And so in looking at kind of, are we identifying students in need of gifted services, the national average, I think, is between 3 and 5% in our district, or the state is around there too. So I think we probably have some work to do in terms of making sure we're identifying students that benefit from those services. I shared the male service, the male student services, and I can pick up those last two as well. The last bullet I have up there kind of added on as I was able to look at the most recent data. Our students that participate in our lunch program participate in special education and receive special education services at a higher rate than our overall student population. So that is a really quick overview of some enrollment information. I would take questions if you have it.
It's great data, thank you. Questions for Dr. Reed?
Question. On some early slides, there was a piece of information I didn't recognize. It was said total active students on the one on district demographics on gender and on the race and ethnicity. Was that just?
Say that again. This slide?
In the lower right-hand corner, it says total active students 5347, which I didn't understand where it went on race, on the district demographics, race and ethnicity slide, and then the gender slide.
So
Way up
Is this slide?
way up.
I think it was your ELL slide, Dr. Reeves, where it talked about active students in ELL.
Oh, okay, but this was on slide number 4 and 5. But I didn't know it was sitting in the bottom right-hand corner. Am I not seeing that?
I know what it is. Okay, so let me show you.
Was it related?
No.
Okay.
That information was on that earlier slide, and I moved it to this. I moved that slide. So
Okay.
I think you guys have maybe something different in your board docs, but that's the same piece of data. It was related specifically to our special education population, that 5,300 students.
And I have one other question. I see the 646 of the gifted students. How does that compare to the number of students that are getting special services, resource services that are struggling? You know, we think of the gifted kids as being pushed and educated at a higher, more nurtured level. What is that number comparative that are struggling, that are a grade or two behind numbers-wise demographically, that we're using extra resources to help get caught up? Maybe it's an MTSS number type thing, or.
So Anjanette could
I
probably.
guess I'm not trying to understand your question.
So in
What's
terms
the
of,
number of kids that are getting the special services because they're so far behind? Like a fourth grader that's read on the second grade level.
Yep.
How many kids fit that model of, you know, we've got gifted kids up here, we've got the regular kids in here, and how many are behind that we're pulling forward?
16%. Right. So of that 53, the percentage of the total population is 16%, but of the 53, 5,347 students,
right,
about 88% of that group is what receives or services that are not given.
and typically that's what you would see, you know, giftedness is really that 95 to 100th percentile. You know, when you start looking at learning challenges and things like that, usually zone in under 30 percentile. So it's a much larger number of students typically based on just that piece.
Is there given the gifted programs, is there an opportunity for growth there, for expansion, demographically, gender-wise? Is that a part of our roadmap the next couple years? To look at ways to grow that?
I'll take that one. At the next board meeting, actually, you'll hear a presentation on gifted education in our district. So I appreciate you asking that question. But in our next board meeting, we'll have a presentation about our criteria for gifted in our district versus the criteria that's been set by the state of Kansas. And not to ruin the ringer of the presentation, but our goal really will be to identify an increased number of students who would be eligible for gifted services within our district.
So just, I think to your question, about 16% of Olathe students of our total population, the state is about 15.8%, and then the US average is about 5, just to kind of give you a comparison of the state.
Two other quick things I wanted to share just real quick as well. Dr. Reeves did a nice job of talking about the increase in free and reduced lunch over last school year. Last school year, you may remember, lunch was free for everyone, so families completed the household economic survey. The best comparison probably for us is actually going back to the 2019 school year, before things kind of lost control of our typical planning and process in schools. This year, we're up over 1,000 kids, though, just in terms of numbers. So our enrollment right now as a school system is about where we were in 15-16, but our free and reduced lunch number is the highest it's ever been, as Dr. Reeves said. So obviously, we're going to continue to track that really closely, not only because of providing resources for kids and that kind of thing, but typically there's somewhat of a correlation between kids who need some additional support in their education and kids who live in poverty and that kind of thing. So we'll be working closely on that as we move forward and focus on Dr. Smith, as he said, the academic preparation of our kids this year.
I had one last question, and I think you started to hit on it, but I wanted to give you a chance to expand on it. On the kindergarten numbers being down, that is statistically consistent nationwide.
Right.
Every state,
Right.
every school district. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's been trending, and I think a lot of people don't realize that's not just an Olathe thing, that the numbers are dropping. It's been everywhere for the last 3, 4, 5 years, according to KSB, right?
Right. So I think the things that we could attribute it to, I don't know about the housing part of that, but I think, the birth rate has gone down, and that's why we see some of that trend maybe across our system, but national as well. And then I think another thing that impacts it in our community is the housing market and being able to find a home in Olathe or Johnson County, and then those that are available aren't always necessarily those maybe first-tier starter homes that new families move into. And I'm sure that's probably a nationwide thing too.
That's right.
Well, it's been trending. We've been picking up kids, so have we been picking them up in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade? Because those numbers, seem to have grown, right? I mean, yes, we have more kids in the high school and the middle schools, but is that something that happens?
Yeah, almost.
Affluent-wise, is that when they're a little bit older, they move in, and we get them more in elementary, middle school?
So typically, there was a time in our district when we were growing 500 kids a year. We were opening a school a year, sometimes 3 schools a year, where we were growing 1,000 kids, 500 kids a year. And a lot of that was the affordability of a starter home within Olathe. That has changed. So what we have seen long-term, though, is as our grade levels move through, they tend to grow. They don't tend to decrease as they go through. And that would be probably related to what you just said, that, families maybe move into their second home, and by that time, their kids in 3rd grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, something like that. So we see our classes grow as they go through typically.
A lot of good data. Thank you. I read it for you. Please.
I'd like to make one comment. I want us to be cautious about broad brushing the non-gifted population of SPED service recipients as being behind. Some of them just learn differently, and we're teaching them differently to meet their need where they're at to keep them on pace. And so just to the world out there, it does not mean they are behind necessarily.
And sometimes special education is OT service, PT service, speech language service, things like that too. So there's a lot of things under that comprehensive umbrella of special education.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To clarify, I wasn't speaking about special ed, I was speaking in general across the district, that we do have kids in all the schools that have struggled. They're behind. That's why we have MTSS, right? That's what I was looking for, is that number of, as we've really looked at, that we've had to go and identify. I think in one of the presentations you even mentioned, it's like, oh yeah, we had to, I think it was even Frontier had done clarified about 80 kids that fit, and then they actually found, I wrote down 34 kids that qualified for intervention, right? They were actually looking to identify those kids, find them, and help them. And that's kind of what I was really looking for, is like that type of work is necessary year in, year out, is finding those kids. Pulling them forward.
And I'm sure we can go back and get some of that data. That's not necessarily data that is pulled for our September 20th. So that's why.
So in terms of MTSS, statistically, about 80% of our kids will respond to our regular core instruction. About 20% would need something beyond that. So that could be that reteaching, intervention, things like that. And then 3 to 5% needing something in addition to that. You've probably seen the triangle before that they talk about in relation to that. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Dr. Reeves, I think I have what is a brief question, but I think
Okay.
it's important. I'm so proud of the continuum of education that we provide, but I also think a lot of people maybe don't know on, I think it's slide 7, the alternative education. Can you run through, we're guilty in education of acronyms of what those mean and what we provide?
So JDC is our juvenile detention center, so students that would be there and the service that's provided from the school system there.
So that's all students in juvenile detention from the entire county as well. So that's not just Olathe students, but since it's in our district, we provide education there.
CLC is one of our special education buildings that provides more of a day treatment type setting for students in grades 1 through 12. And so that's housed out by Olathe Northwest High School. The Mill Creek campus has Step Up, which is a GED or a high diploma completion program. Hope is an alternative program for students to be able to remain in school and continue to work toward their coursework who have been suspended or long-term suspended. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these because I'm the
CLC is the only one you missed so far.
I did miss it. Okay.
CLC is our school on the Kids TLC campus where students that are in residential treatment at Kids TLC attend school.
Now, does that CLC number include the Prairie Learning Center number?
No.
Okay, Prairie Learning separate from, that's not considered alternate education?
No.
I'm not looking at the slide at the moment, so.
Is Prairie Learning not considered part of the alternate education program?
It is. That's
Okay, I just didn't see it on the list.
Okay.
You thought this was an easy question, Mrs. Steele.
Sorry, Dr. Reeves.
Dr. Yeager hit on that. Claire is part of the Kids TLC campus, and so those students that are residentially treated there, that's where we deploy our school services at Claire. PLC is an alternative education program over by Olathe Northwest. It's its own physical freestanding building that houses K through 12, and those numbers are separate, but they are both alternative placements.
SOAR is a program for students on an alternate path, so their day looks a little bit different. Many of those students are dually enrolled at their school and then through Mill Creek campus as well. And then OCL is off-campus learning, and I don't know a lot about off-campus learning. That's one.
And OCL also includes our extended absence services for students who would require some sort of homebound service. So there's a few different things that fall under OCL.
One of the things that I would mention, and again, we probably take it for granted sometimes in our district, but our programs for kids who have been expelled and suspended from school are not something that we're required to do, but our district, our board has invested in that for a number of years with the understanding and recognition how important it is for students to graduate from high school to have lifelong success. That's pretty unique to our district, so that's something that we should all be really proud of. Our Step Up program, many of you have attended our graduations for Step Up. Those are students who are typically well beyond the age of high school, students as young as 18, but I think last year when I was there, the oldest graduate maybe was in their mid-60s, something like that. So again, it's a pretty amazing thing. Those are folks who typically would probably earn a GED, but they earn an Olathe high school diploma, which is pretty special. So some really neat things like that we don't have to do, but this board and this district has prioritized for quite some time in our district.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Turn it over to Dr. Sig, Human Resources.
So Dr. Sig just found out Friday she was going to present at the board meeting tonight, so I'd like to thank her for that. But really the reason is last week we had our second Citizens Advisory Group meeting for the school year, and Dr. Sig did a really nice presentation. The whole thing took about an hour probably, and great questions and conversations with the group. But I'd like you all to have some of the information that was shared. We'll probably have to break this up a little bit, so you're probably going to be relieved when I say we're not looking at an hour-long presentation with this tonight, but we do want to chunk it for you all so you have a sense of it, as it's some pretty great information.
Yeah, in fact, he was
giving me 10 to 12 minutes. So you are going to get a shortened version. So I have the pleasure of being able to share with you tonight some of the special recruitment efforts that our human resources team has undertaken in the last year and moving forward. But before I dive into those, I want to kind of start first with the first slide here, which obviously references our strategic plan, because that is truly the foundation of the work that we do in our department. And of course, we have a full column of human resources within our strategic plan, which correlate and tie to what I'm going to share with you this evening. But as we look at recruitment efforts within the district, we of course start with, just as we do in our classrooms, looking at data. So to begin, I want to share with you just some basic information about the number of staff that we employ in the district, which currently is 5,382. Thought I could do this without my glasses, but can't. So this is as of last week, so this number is going to look a little bit different even today. But of those approximately 5,400 staff members, we have 2,593 certified staff. So certified staff are those individuals serving in roles in our district that require a license of some kind. Most of those are licensed through the State Department of Education. So of course, all of our teachers, our instructional coaches, all of those individuals are licensed through the State Department of Education, but it also includes other individuals that are certified through KDHE, so the Department of Health and Environment. So those would be our occupational therapists, our physical therapists, our nurses, but we include all of them in that certified group. The next group up there is our classified staff, which of course they are integral to making our buildings tick and having our kids supported every day. Our classified staff, we have 1,847 staff members in that group. And those would be individuals that are serving in roles that don't require a license. So our paraeducators, our secretarial staff, our custodians, food service staff members are all part of our classified staff. We have 142 administrators. That's pretty self-explanatory, but that includes both district level and building level administrators. And then substitutes. We have 654 substitutes in our substitute pool. This is probably the number that's changed since last week. We are fortunate to have a really awesome substitute services team who's working all the time to recruit subs, which will be my shameless plug to anyone that has an interest in being a sub. Please take a look and give us a shout. But that substitute pool they are employees of ours and part of our school district count. And the next one is kind of an odd titling, temps and Rule 10s. This group includes individuals that we sometimes contract with on a temporary basis. So an example of that would be during the pandemic, for example, in our HR department and in our health services department, we hired temporary staff who came in and helped us with processing of tracking of COVID and contact tracing and all the things we're trying to block out now. But those would be examples of temp workers. And then Rule 10s are those individuals who coach for us in some capacity. So they may be a wrestling assistant coach, but they are not an employee of ours. So they are titled Rule 10s, but they still are a part of our staff and employees of ours. So as we dive into digging in a little further into the demographics of these groups, I have for you, first up, kind of looking at gender, which might be a funny thing to think about when we talk about diversity and that type of thing, but when we talk in education, it really is something for us to kind of think about. So you can see here, I have our student and then certified, classified, and administrative kind of breakdown of gender. And one thing that probably sticks out immediately is that 80% of our certified staff are females and 20% are males. So when we go into talking about diversity within recruitment, sometimes it's literally the kindergarten male teacher that we find is a diverse candidate, because the majority of those 20% of our male certified staff are in our secondary level buildings. But you can see in those other categories, it is all pretty equal with half and half on the gender side of things. Next up, we're going to take a look at race and ethnicity, because of course this is one of those pieces of our strategic plan that we have a specific focus on in trying to increase the diversity in our staff. So again, I'm providing here the student race and ethnicity demographics, which you can see we have about 64% of our students who are white or Caucasian, and then from there is Hispanic, and then Black or African American, multiracial, and then Asian, American Indian, and then Native Hawaiian or Asia Pacific Islander. So you can see there that as we go across in our certified staff, we're about 93% white or Caucasian, and then the breakdown from there. Our classified staff has more diversity in its ranks, and then our administrative team also has a little more diversity than our certified staff. So as we look at these numbers, I thought it was important to get a little bit of a frame of reference of kind of where we've been, because we know this is something that's been a focus for us. And so I am providing here, oops, I went too far. A comparison from 5 years ago of what our certified demographics look like in comparison with today. So you can see in the certified ranks, we have increased some of our diversity there, although we still have work to do, of course. And then on our administrative team as well, we've had some increases in the diversity there when you look at those minority races and ethnicities. But again, still an area for us to continue to focus on. Next up, I wanted to share kind of a global picture as I talk here in a minute or two about some of the specific recruitment strategies we've put into place. I think it's also important to have a little broader perspective of kind of the future of teachers and our teacher pool, if you will. So on the right there, you can see that right now, 2/3 of school districts currently are reporting some type of teacher shortage. And that 55% of teachers are planning to leave the classroom earlier than they had anticipated due to COVID. And for the first time ever in 2018, more than half of our parents were discouraging their kids from becoming teachers, which is kind of the dagger in the heart. But something that I think is important for us to kind of keep a perspective of as we look long range at teacher needs. And then the last one there, there's been a 62% increase in teacher vacancies in Kansas from 2020 to 2021. So we have been fortunate that we have really been insulated from some of the teacher shortages that other districts have experienced already. But one area we have felt it is as we look over to the left there in special education. So you can see there, these are actual special education classroom vacancies that we've experienced throughout the last 4 years, which is an area of concern for us. But this year, we are so thankful to be where we're at and just having 4 vacancies at the moment, which we know in comparison to some of our other neighbors and friends is really pretty impressive. But we, of course, want to get that to 0. I felt like another important piece was to kind of hear the stats when it comes to how many graduates we have coming out of our teacher preparation programs, and this kind of gives you a perspective on that. We currently are hosting 53 student teachers, which is wonderful. We would take them hand over fist if we could, but that is about half of what we are typically hosting. So we usually had 90 to 100 student teachers, and that is certainly not something that's happened overnight, but we have just seen gradually over the last several years that continues to decline. So when we look at all of this information, we really felt like there were 3 specific areas that we wanted to focus upon. And we worked not only as an HR team, but had some other departments that played critical parts in the work that we're doing in these. So we have a special education focus in terms of recruitment. The diversity piece, as we know, that's an important part of our strategic plan, and then kind of that long range piece as well. So I'm going to kick this off and start first with the special education recruitment efforts. So this was one that we undertook last year, and it was a true partnership amongst our HR department along with Ann Addison in our university liaison group, and then of course Ann Jeanette and her team in special education. So as you saw on that previous slide, we had a number of special education classroom vacancies and had been experiencing that for a few years. And so we were having these brainstorming sessions of what can we do? What are some things that we can look at doing differently to maybe start growing our own special education teachers? And so in having those conversations, one of the first things that we talked about were the paraeducators that we have working in special education and the great work that they do. And that Dr. Ann Addison shared that she oftentimes would get calls from paras that they want to be special education teachers and they maybe have a bachelor's degree, but it's not in education. and getting over that hurdle of figuring out how do I go back to school to complete maybe a master's so that then I can qualify for a teaching license is the struggle. So that was kind of where we started, because we knew our paraeducators work with our kids with special needs and understand that world and know that they have a true passion for supporting those kids. So we developed a proposal and then folded in Cindy Bonfelt from the foundation, which I can't share enough how impressive our foundation is. So we kind of pitched this idea to Cindy, and she was gracious and listening and providing us feedback and tidbits on things that she thought would be helpful to us, and then going and making the formal request to the foundation to fund this. Our hope was that we could have the foundation fund 6 paraeducators and pay for that master's degree. That in return, then we would have the requirement that those paras, as they became special education teachers, would then serve in a special education classroom for 5 years. So Witten made that pitch to the foundation, and they were so gracious in supporting that. So this year we have 6 paraeducators who are in this program that we've partnered with Pitt State on. 2 of them are actually already serving as special education teachers because they qualify for a provisional license after finishing a couple of the courses in the program. And the others we have on track to continue to grow and put into those special education classrooms. But this was really kind of a creative solution, again, that was a true team effort that we hope that we continue to provide. But really the fundamental piece to this was having that financial backing from the foundation, because that is just one of the biggest hurdles with that. So that was our prong on special education. Then in terms of increasing diversity, again, partnering with all of our friends across the district that have been so supportive. And so Marquise Harris, our Assistant Director of Culture and Belonging, and again, Ann Addison, kind of working together and looking at all of the places that we currently recruit from, which this is not the list of where we recruit. It's much, much longer, and I would be way longer than 10 to 12 minutes if I went into all of that. So what we did was we took a look at how can we cast our net a little wider, but do it in a strategic way so that we are really focusing on colleges and universities that have a higher index of diversity in their enrollments. We also, though, had to balance that with the distance from Olathe, because we know that going and recruiting from somewhere that is, 12 to 16 hours away, and getting somebody to relocate to an area where they know no one and don't have any family, and we do not have any means for paying for their moving expenses and all of those things, was going to be really difficult. So we kind of used a 4-hour radius for ourselves, and so developed this list of additional colleges and universities that we're going to tap into, and some of these that we already have, but continue to kind of grow those partnerships, and hopefully even at some point be able to have them placing some of their student teachers with us as well. But this is an area we're continuing to work on, and working with Marquise and Ann as well in tapping into some of our current educators in our system who are maybe alumni of some of these colleges and universities to go with us on these recruitment trips. And then you'll see on that bullet in the second box there too, Ann has done a great job of really working to expand our network of colleges and universities that do place student teachers with us. That's a long line. Every college has numerous school districts that want more student teachers, but really creating those partnerships and being creative in that. And then once we have those student teachers, really just pouring into them. And again, Ann and Amy Hillman do a wonderful job of offering all kinds of support. Our student teacher boot camp just took place last week, which is an all-day event just for our student teachers here in Olathe. And really it's just another layer in us kind of bringing them into the fold and wanting them to pick Olathe as the first place they want to teach after they graduate. The last prong I'm going to talk about is kind of the long game. And so these really are the work of Dr. Addison and then, of course, Amy Hillman, who you all heard from last year. I'm sure you remember her. She's quite memorable and a true spark in getting kids fired up about being teachers. So Amy has done a ton of work in working with our middle schools and growing what we call the FAE crew, the Future Educator Crew, which is a club that students can belong to and learn more about becoming a teacher and having some of those opportunities to be mini teachers, if you will. So right now, she has that up and running at Santa Fe, Indian, Pioneer, and Oregon Trail, and she's working to expand that. Then at the high school level, Amy has implemented the Future Educators Clubs, and that is at the 4 high schools that don't host our Future Educator Academy. So it really gives those students who are not a part of that Future Educator Academy an opportunity to take part in some of the similar curriculum that's offered at the academy, but really kind of bringing them in the fold as well and giving them those opportunities to go and support students even at the elementary and middle schools. And then, of course, our Future Educators Academy, which is an awesome program that's offered at East. And we partner with them to keep kind of tabs on those students that graduate from their program, again, so that when they finish their teacher preparation programs, we can tap in and bring them back. One way we do that is by offering early hire contracts. This is a super fun exercise we go through in the spring, where those kids that are graduating out of that academy can apply to actually be a teacher in Olathe. They go through an application and interview process. And right now we have 25 early contracts that we've offered to those students. And now we're just waiting for them to finish those college programs. So we're still a few years out before that first group will be ready for that, but we look forward to that. On the left-hand side, you can see some of the additional work that both Amy and Ann have undertaken in the area of supporting our para-educators. Every fall and spring, we host a para-passport night where we bring in multiple colleges and universities that share the programs they offer for paras that have an interest in going and getting their teaching license or maybe their bachelor's degree, and really then support them as they kind of work along in that process. So right now we have 26 paras that are enrolled in a program and 13 that are declared to start in the spring. Our para-passport event is coming up in November, so I would anticipate that these numbers would only increase as we get to that as well. So we know these are things that are going to be, again, that long game, but we felt like knowing what we're seeing in terms of kind of that nationwide trend and the research that we're looking at there was something we wanted to invest in. And knowing our ultimate goal is for our staff to mirror our students in terms of demographics. We've got this captive audience sitting right in front of us every day. And so really pouring into our current students and tapping into those kids that have a passion for being teachers and keeping connected to them. I'm probably over my 10 to 12 minutes, but I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Questions?
I don't want to let the moment pass, but without saying thank you to Dr. Sig and our learning services team, our HR team, Marquise Harris, or Eric Arazo, countless principals and teachers who have helped in these efforts. It's really important that we continue to find ways to recruit staff, and obviously retaining staff is the other piece that we'll share at some point. But it's a pretty challenging situation. I just spent the last couple of days with superintendents from both Kansas and Missouri, and in terms of the open number of positions we have, the 6 bed positions, we are probably in better shape than anyone, to be honest with you. And Dr. Sig talked about the number of student teachers, and that's really indicative of fewer and fewer students going into education. You all heard probably recently that Emporia State has laid off 15% of their staff. That is our teaching college. There's fewer and fewer kids going each year. I just heard from a superintendent from a little bit out west who I talked to yesterday evening, who said that she had just been to a career fair at one of the universities, and usually there was 6, 8, 12 kids just standing, waiting to talk to school districts, but now she said 1, maybe 2, those kinds of things. And so I think it's really important that we certainly continue our efforts and those kinds of things, but also recognize as a community that what has been somewhat insulated from us in Olathe is here now. And a lot of these challenges we're going to continue to feel. So, the more we can inspire young people to consider education as a career, and the more we can appreciate and keep our current educators inspired, the better shape we're going to be in as well, because it's going to get really challenging more and more so every year. So I just thank you for that work.
Thank you for the work you're doing. Representation matters so much, and I'm so thankful that you're looking at the long game, and it is so important to me, and I don't want to speak for anybody else up here, but I know for others that our kids see someone who looks like them before they leave this place. So thank you to you and your team that are doing your best to try to make that happen.
Others? All right. Thank you, Dr. Sig. We will move on to 5.01, public comments.
The Board of Education reserved limited time during its regular meetings for individuals to address the board. Individuals addressing the board should come to the podium at the front of the room when requested by the board president. When beginning your address to the board, we ask that you please share your name, the city where you live, and what schools your children attend or have attended in the district. Tonight, we request that individuals limit their speaking time to 3 minutes. A staff person will monitor the time and notify the speaker when their 3 minutes has expired. Please direct your comments to the entire board. If a response is appropriate, the president will respond or refer to another individual. We ask that the speakers refrain from discussing complaints involving individual staff members or students if they have not been previously addressed to the district administration. Out of respect for everyone in attendance, yelling, foul language, props, visuals, and addressing the audience are not permitted. In addition, audience members are not allowed to speak, yell, or give applause during public comments. This ensures the board is able to listen and then transition to the next speaker. Please note that those who disturb the meeting in any capacity will be asked to leave and may lose the opportunity to speak at future meetings.
Thank you. All right, our first speaker is Jennifer Gilmore.
What makes a great community? Is it when trust is given without being earned? Should high school students be pressuring middle schoolers on a choir field trip to use pronouns? Where's our policy to safeguard against this? How about a lack of accountability from educators when students are used to push their political bias ideology? Is there a policy for that? I believe people desperately want the time back in Olathe when trust was given because of the reputation of great schools. But the failures of the school board continue to burn out the little flame that's left for so many community members. We once again are forced to believe the unbelievable when you sit there and rubber stamp another ludicrous budget without even reading it for your own self-interest. You quietly terminated another pedophile preying on our children only to turn around telling parents 2 weeks after he was discharged. This is the 5th pedophile under your leadership. Why are there so many in Olathe schools? Is there a direct correlation between the ONEA and their support for pornographic material for children and grooming of those with gender dysphoria? From my knowledge, this board has lacked the ability to create any real policy to protect Olathe students. As a mother of a biracial child, I'm once again challenged by your DEI initiatives. Seeing a black woman come to this very podium begging this board to make DEI a priority is unbelievable. I questioned a year ago if you were capable of any meaningful work to improve the lives of minority children in this district. You implemented an idea with no measurable goals. When asked what Olathe was missing to justify the need for more DEI programs, you came up with nothing more than the need to attract and retain minority educators, yet look across from you. When asked how much money was initially allocated, Mr. Hutchison could not recall. Marquise recently secured a $300,000 grant. Where will that money be going, and how will you measure success of these new initiatives so that they directly impact students? Dr. Guerrero said it wasn't going to be in curriculum. When we asked for more information of how you are utilizing the Southern Poverty Law Institute for professional development, you tried to pretend you were only using them as an a la carte service and promptly removed any contents from the district website. Diversity is the mixture of differences, which includes values, experiences, behaviors, beliefs, and backgrounds, everything that makes us different from one another. Inclusion is the degree which diverse individuals fully participate in decision-making processes and contribute. And equity is the fair treatment and access to opportunity. Why is Olathe missing these basic principles in 2022? Heads should be rolling if this school district seriously is not doing this. It's unbelievable. This board denied CRT was in our schools last year. In fact, you called me a liar for fighting against it. Yet teachers in this district signed a petition that if CRT was banned in our state, they would still be committed to teaching it. Those teachers still work here. Tonight, a discussion should be had if educators should be terminated if they publicly vow to break any law or put a child in danger. Keep Olathe kids safe from pedophiles, pornographic material, and divisive ideology, and start adopting new policies to earn our trust back of this community because it is no longer given, and that is believable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Eric Zink.
My name is Eric Zink. In 38 years in Olathe, 18 were as a teacher of mathematics, and I've served as a couple terms as the ONEA treasurer. I would like to review the following statement made by administration that inaccurately quantifies the teacher raise. This inaccuracy was used to justify the administrative raise last year on layoffs and other budgets. The statement, teachers received a 3% raise, and traditionally we do a like percentage to administration. But the 3% increase salary schedule does not equate to a teacher's raise. That 3% increase of $6.7 million mentioned consists of 3 components. First, there was an influx of teacher and instructional coach hires that simply required additional salary money. That was not a raise to anyone. Additional teachers just increased the payroll, estimated $1.9 million of 6% total. Secondly, lateral movement was $2.4 million of last year's payroll increase. Lateral movement is earned through study and earned degrees. This requires time and money expenditure by the teacher seeking that added income. Administrators are already compensated for their advanced degree and should not receive a windfall for another's work. Last to consider is the vertical movement, which is the only amount that should be used as an equitable consideration. Vertical movement awards teachers for their years of experience. This is a basic annual raise and ideally would be a standard cost of living. It is not. Last year was $2.2 million, or less than a third of the $6.7 million salary scale. 62% of teachers received only the vertical increase and saw an average raise of about 1.2%, as about 10% of elected teachers cannot live on the salary and got zero or no raise. So during this time of hardship, teachers received a basic raise of none to 1.2%, yet administration at least 3% based on a faulty calculation. Over the past decade, if this traditional practice calculating administrative pay would guarantee that administration consistently thrives and beats the cost of inflation, while the average teacher loses buying power and every year and continually falls behind. The one aspect that allows teachers to close the gap on cost of living is the lateral movement, where teachers put money and effort into their education. This aspect of our schedule appears to be at risk with the recently proposed changes to the schedule. The action points to be taken from this are: 1, the cost of teachers' payroll increase should not be misapplied to unequally adjusted administrator pay. The administration's negotiations should be more transparent and as easy to access as the teacher's schedule. I would encourage more board members to attend professional council meetings, require transparency, and ask for more information. The current contract started August 1st. It's October. The last 2 years, financial considerations have pushed spring negotiations to October at the least. This needs to be firmly addressed. Why are teachers expected to work more a quarter of the year without knowing their pay, their benefit costs, and working conditions? Why do we have a passed budget before the board has the compensation numbers? The board needs to set the expectation that contract negotiations are settled prior to the start date of the contract. Many districts include a board member on the bargaining team. Perhaps it's time for Olathe to follow that model so the board becomes more intimately involved in the workings of that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Christy Sloan.
I should learn to talk faster. Christy Sloan, Olathe, Millbrook Elementary. I'm in front of you today to advocate awareness for outdated policies, mental awareness, autism, and special needs as a collaborative effort between parents and educators, specifically to allow ABA services paid by parents within the school. We currently have ABA services provided by waiver services regulated by a BCBA. Autism is not classified as a physical disability, creating a gray area our kids fall in between gen ed and SPED. ABA benefits are an opportunity in a natural setting, social interaction, communication, social and emotional regulation. We as parents are losing valuable services after being placed on wait lists for years in order to obtain these services. We have a gap being created and a barrier when they are not allowed to receive the services from home to school. Limiting access reduces growth potential with significant impact to our children's education. No access to our kids in school settings without staff resources, and we currently have a para ratio of 1 to 2 kids, my child being one of them. It accelerates the escape avoidance that autism kids exhibit, which is what they use as a survival technique within schools. Within the first 30 days, we had a safety plan. My child now sits on a bench and doodles during recess because he can't interact. And we have assignments and tasks being sent home that we're required to complete at home because they cannot be done within the school when he has a para. He can't do this. We have 30 hours of ABA services. We walk in the front door. We have the ABA therapist there. The ABA therapist leaves when he goes to bed at night. There is no time for me to take on this responsibility on top of all the other things he has to do. Autistic children suffer educationally when social skills are not on the same page with other kids. This creates a silent bullying that no one wants to talk about within current policies. In conclusion, we all need to keep our minds in educating kids without hard stops. I ask we reconsider updating dated policies to allow for parent-paid ABA services within our school for a collaborative effort between parents and educators. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Megan Bricks.
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Megan Bricks, and I'm an elementary music teacher here in the Olathe School District. I'm also an assistant bowling coach at the high school level. I want to take a moment to share that today is National Coaches Day. I'm truly thankful to get to work alongside my amazing head bowling coach at Olathe West, Sam Palm, who's probably watching this right now, who is also a football coach. He has taught me so much so far in my coaching career, and I am truly honored to lead our students with him. Happy National Coaches Day to all coaches in our district who truly have a huge impact on our athletes and build them into great teammates, both on and off the field, the court, or the bowling lanes in my case. Everyone who knows me well knows that I always want to speak up for those who might not be heard. Everyone who knows me knows that I will always put others before myself. My mom can attest to that. I'm always willing to help a coworker or colleague before I begin my own work or lesson prep because that is just who I am. Tonight I want to share with you a concern that I currently have, and hopefully bringing this to light with you will allow us to work together to find possible solutions. At the elementary level, we are needing substitute teachers. Every day last week, there was at least one unfilled sub position within my own building, and that is not counting the other 35 elementary schools. I hope that I can put this into perspective for you tonight. When a sub position goes unfilled, the building then is responsible for determining a solution using the staff in their building. That might be a grade level classroom being split among the other classrooms in their grade level. That may look like the specialist covering during their plan time. That may look like counselors covering when they might need to support a student. That might look like two classes going into the same special at the same time. The possibilities are endless, and our building administrators do a great job to collaborate with the staff to determine the best possible solution. Tonight I'm here to explain the effect that this then has on both the students and the staff. We'll begin with the students first, as our mission focuses on preparing students for their future. When a sub position does not get filled for a classroom teacher, either the students will be divided into another teacher's classroom where there is a larger class size, or the students will stay in their classroom and have guest teachers coming in and out of their classroom each day for 30 minutes to 1 hour at a time. Either way, the student's schedule may be changed or modified, and the students may have multiple adults teaching them throughout the day. It's really important that our students continue in their routine, but without having a substitute teacher there, it's almost impossible. Our students deserve the best. Next, I wanted to talk about the effect this has on the teachers and staff. For the classroom teachers who gain extra students in their class, they'll have bigger class sizes, won't have enough seats or materials. For teachers who go into cover during their plan time, they come to school thinking they can do work during that time to discover they will no longer have that time. For the specialists who teach two classes at once, they may not have the materials or resources to do that. The unfilled sub positions take a toll on our abilities to perform our own jobs to the best of our abilities. It also puts additional stress upon us as teachers. Now here's where I need your help. We need to find immediate possible solutions to help fill the unfilled sub positions. I know that we have advertised in many facets, and I truly appreciate that, but while we are still in the need of subs, we as a district need to devise some possible solutions. I'm always willing to step in. I want to be a part of the solution, so tonight I'm offering my time. Please invite me to a meeting where we can sit down and look over data related to the number of unfilled substitute positions in the elementary versus middle versus high school, and even break that down by feeder pattern or by school. I'm asking you tonight, please ask me to be a part of the solution. Let me help brainstorm ideas on how we can utilize staff that we currently have throughout the district to lessen the load that's upon our teachers' shoulders. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight. I appreciate each of you who show up in our community and within our schools each and every day. I truly am a proponent for public schools here in the state of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Lanter. Then we'll go to the next, Sheila Albers.
Good evening, Dr. Yeager and Olathe School Board members. My name is Sheila Albers, and I appreciate the opportunity this evening to address you during public comment. I'm here this evening for two reasons. First is just to express my deep commitment and support for our public schools here in Kansas. I am a mom of kids who attend public schools here in Johnson County. I'm also a great aunt of 5 great nephews, all under the age of 3. My nieces and nephews have all bought homes here in the area, and I'd like to think that I had a say-so in where they bought their homes because of where I want my great nephews to go to school. All of my great nephews will attend either Blue Valley or Olathe schools. I'm also here because I'm a former educator who spent 25 years serving students, families, and staff. I started my career as a teacher and a coach at the high school level, and then later became a high school administrator. My last 13 years in education, from 2006 to 2019, I was the proud principal of Harmony Middle School in the Blue Valley School District. We moved here in 2006 so that I could take the principalship in Blue Valley. We also came here because my oldest son would start kindergarten. My husband always makes the joke that really nobody moves to Johnson County, Kansas for the beaches or the mountains. We move here because of the quality of life this community affords us. It's a great place to be a young professional. It's a great place to raise a family, and it's a great place to retire. This is due, in my opinion, in large part to our outstanding public schools. The second reason I'm here is to say thank you. The last 2 years have been so difficult for educators, and I am deeply grateful for all the work that you have done to support students and families during a very difficult time. I am personally super energized by the new programs that I see our Johnson County schools rolling out for students. Our talented teachers, our administrators, and staff have been relentless in their efforts to help students learn and grow. Thank you for your passion and your commitment to this community.
Thank you. All right, and that concludes public comments for the evening. I know, right? Off my game. Okay, that moves us on to section 6, action consent. If there are no questions or anything that a board member would like to remove from the consent agenda, I would seek a motion to approve.
I move to approve consent agenda items numbered 6.01 to 6.09 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Felter, second by Mrs. Steele.
Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Mrs. Felter,
Yes.
Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 7-0. Moving on, action bids, contracts, agreements. I would ask the same question. I think that we had some questions perhaps, but I could be wrong.
I move to approve action bids, contracts, and agreements 7.01 through 7.09 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Boyd, a second by I think I heard Mr. Kuhn first, but I could be wrong.
Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Mrs. Felter.
Yes.
All right. We do have one action other item. As members of the Kansas Association of School Boards, we need to appoint a delegate and an alternate for the convention. I understand that there are 4 of us attending, so I would look for a volunteer. Take you about an hour.
I'll volunteer to be a delegate. I'm going,
Oh, you are going? Okay,
I
then,
am going.
perfect.
so I'll be a delegate too. Ask for a
So,
volunteer.
yeah, so we've got Mr. Connell as our designated delegate. Somebody want to be an alternate?
I'm happy to do the alternate.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. So then I would just seek a motion to appoint Mr. Connell as delegate and Mr. Beveridge as alternate delegate to represent the Olathe Public Schools at the 2022 Kansas Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly Meeting.
So moved. Need a second?
Any second?
Second.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion by Mr. Boyd, a second by Mr. Beveridge.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Connell,
Yes.
Mrs. Felter, Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. You'll see future action items, and there are quite a few of them. I would call attention maybe to one it's pretty exciting as we continue to talk about safety and security. Mr. Yeager, Dr. Yeager, do you want to talk just a little bit about 9.11, the interior door locks for designated?
Am I doing that, Dr. McMullen?
A door lock system, which is a system we currently have in all of our elementary schools pre-K, and then also in some select classrooms at the secondary level, mostly for our students with some significant physical challenges. But the goal is to get those barricades installed in all of our classrooms at the secondary level, in addition to some places at the elementary school where we think it'd be beneficial as well. And so to remind the board, the barricade system is a locking mechanism at the base of a door that is screwed into a floor plate that allows a teacher to quickly go and drop the pin in the door, and it secures the door completely. And so it really, it allows for a rapid lockdown of a classroom or an area that they are in without even locking the doorknob. And so it's a really good system. It's been very well received at the elementary level. We've had it for, 3-4 years now. But we felt as we, again, continue to always evaluate our safety programming, we felt, the expense was worth adding it to all of our classrooms.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And as a side note too, you may remember that this wasn't one of the line items that we talked about initially as part of our safety and security strand for our bond, but Dr. McMullen, Mr. Kiger, you may remember, did a great job writing a grant that essentially helped in terms of about $500,000 for our Centegix crisis alert system. So that gave us some flexibility to expand the horizon a little bit in terms of what we were going to do. So
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. You will have had an opportunity to check out the written information. We've got a lot of those future action items are bond related, and so again, continue to appreciate getting that bond issue update and also a great report on student health services. So hope everyone had a chance to check those out. And then we are on to topics for discussion. So,
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I was confused. I didn't find the materials to look at in the board docs. On 9.17 district for the complex scoreboard replacement projects, didn't we just replace those big scoreboard systems in the last couple of years? I mean, there was a huge undertaking at CBAC and ODEC. What's different? And there wasn't any information, so I'm just asking.
Future action.
Yes, sorry. These are for the scoreboards on our baseball, softball, and soccer fields. So
Thank you. Didn't see that. I must have missed it. So there it is.
Okay, there you go. Any topics for discussion for board members?
I have a couple.
Sure.
Thank you. Attached was our health services report, and it's so rich. I encourage everybody to access that and look at it. I just wanted to highlight that the total student health room visits year over year for the 2021-2022 year increased 57%. So it's a sign of the times, and thank you, Dr. Sarah, for leading this team. I know we have, is it 8 new school nurses? Or I hate to put you on the spot, but we were just talking in the back, and I just want everybody to be aware of what a heavy lift this is in general.
So this year we have 13 new nurses. Since the start of the pandemic, we have 27 new nurses out of a staff of 65 nurses. So we have a lot of up and coming great school nurses.
That's awesome. And will you tell them a little bit about what you're doing to support the new ones? Like, what did you do today?
Oh, well, I was talking with Leetta earlier about how the start of the week was hard for me. I was kind of struggling because becoming a school nurse, coming from either a hospital or a clinic, and then coming into a world of education where you really don't have any background is incredibly difficult. Students really have a much higher medical need now than 15, 20 years ago. So nurses are tasked with taking care of kids with some really pretty heavy duty needs. We have diabetic kiddos that see nurses 8 or 10 times a day. It's really a pretty heavy lift. And I was feeling kind of heartbroken because some of our new nurses were really feeling overwhelmed and like, this is just too much. Like, they just didn't, last month when I visited them, there was tears, there were struggles. And this week I have visited with 8 of our new nurses, and every single one of them, their faces are bright. They're like, I've got this, I'm stepping up into this position. And it warmed my heart. It made me really, this was a great end to my week today, to just visit with all my nurses and feel them, you know, they were just saying how much they loved it, and their staff members were saying how much they loved their new nurses. So it was really heartwarming.
Well, thank you for going the extra mile. I think just showing up and letting them feel that you're present and that you see them it's the secret sauce to our success. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
You're
And I mean,
welcome.
just seeing the data, I mean, everybody's exhausted, but especially school nurses. So
Yeah. Yeah, they really just they need support, and they need grace as they learn. You know, it is a much, much more different environment from a hospital or a clinic. And you know, I was a second career nurse. I became a nurse at 39 years old, and worked at Truman Hospital for a couple of years, and then came on as a school nurse. And it was such an amazing difference. I mean, I had 3 very average children who did okay in school. I never knew what the school system was truly like, how much our teachers go through, our administrators, and just the breadth of the need in schools. So I love school nursing. I think it's just, and my nurses love it.
well, we're grateful you're at where you are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for letting me highlight that.
Sure.
One other element of that report that I wanted to point out is the vaccine exemptions. And I've always kind of watched this just because I do not want polio to resurge again.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, year over year, 1.93% for the year 2021 received exemptions, and then 1.92 the year before. So it's I mean, like a high year on our chart was 2018, 2.02%. So it has not, I've had quite a few people ask about, how many get exemptions? And so it's pretty much tracking evenly, wouldn't you say?
I would say my guess is this year we will have more religious exemptions. We will know that data fairly soon. We are just going through our first exclusion date, which is our first date where we ask parents to have their child as up to date as they can be on their immunization status. So our nurses spend hours and hours entering immunization data, talking with parents about immunizations. And so, yeah, we work really, really hard to make sure our children are adequately immunized so that we don't have outbreaks of whooping cough and measles and pertussis. So,
Well, thank you for that.
Great.
Thanks for letting me spontaneously highlight it. And then one other note, congratulations to the city of Olathe. Did you guys see? We're number 3 in Fortune's top 25 best places to live. And a lot of that is due to our amazing public schools, which happens because of all of you. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the highlights. Anyone else? I see Mr. Connell.
I was just going to mention real quickly, we have the foundation breakfast on October 21st. Get to hear Dr. Yeager speak, so we're all excited about the state of the district. So if you can make it or if you can join online, I encourage you to do that, and there'll be some fun announcements as well.
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Connell?
So I've got a handful of different things. So I'm the representative to the Head Start Policy Council, and October is National Head Start Awareness Month, of all things. As you saw from Dr. Reeves, I'm used to saying Mr., but it's Dr. now. Dr. Reeves' presentation, we have an extremely large, almost 1,000 early education kids across the district, and a good chunk of those kids are in our Head Start program. And my shout out is to Kim Squared, and they know who they are, but also to the parents. We just had the parents elect themselves. The policy council is run by the parents. The district staff facilitate. I'm really there just to vote when they vote. Amazing people that step up for the lives of their kids. With that goes the second thing I want to talk to is like volunteers, right? We need subs in the schools, absolutely. But as you heard Dr. Smith from Frontier talk about is that they've been charged, every school, with an outreach to the community to bring you parents back into the schools and volunteer. We have a certified or a registered volunteer program that had a little over 600 maybe volunteers last year. And I've talked to Dr. Yeager, it's one of my passions that I want to make that 1,000. Now, in a school of 30,000 kids and 168,000 adults, it ought to be more than that, but these are the registered. So this does not count all of you moms and dads that do the DOGS program, that go into the schools, that show up and help the teachers prepare, or you help the principal in the office. Those are just as critical, but please keep that up, because every teacher that may have be missing their aid that they used to have needs aid, AID, from volunteers and all of us participating. So I have been invited. I'm going to be reading at each of the Head Start programs of the next couple weeks, and so I'm really excited to get the Black Bob and Harmony and everywhere. So with that related, I also want to call out in the medical information. I was really happy to see, Sarah, that I was pretty excited. So October is also National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month. If you don't know, my kid had a cardiac arrest while pitching in a baseball game 3.5 years ago. Just in the last couple weeks, we had a kid in Olathe, who lives in Olathe, that have a heart transplant after a cardiac arrest. It's on the news. We had a kindergartner 3 months ago have a heart transplant, right? A lot of kids aren't getting checked. And I'm going to passionately, we had the IRC building was open this past weekend for heart checks. Please, $150 is way cheaper for peace of mind than the well over $1 million medical bill we got at Children's. Now let that sink in. Or the $30,000 for a funeral. Get your kids checked. Now, the AMA and the CDC also show that sudden cardiac arrest kills over 340,000 adults every year. Please get healthier, eat healthier, think healthier. If you are faint or anything like that, please go talk to someone. If your kids are saying that they're faint or they're not feeling well or they're irritated, high rates of, go get them checked. There's a wonderful boy who's now in high school that was at Chisholm Trail last year, who the coaches recognized he was suffering. Next day, goes to the hospital with children. He never knew, it's a great family, never knew that the artery on the outside of his heart was actually supposed to be under his heart. Full open heart surgery. I'm just saying we have an opportunity with all the local school districts have partnered with the myhealthcheck.org folks. Go look them up, get scheduled, please. With that said, there are new AED cabinets that our health groups and ours have put outside ones, which is really exciting, not locked indoors, but at CBAC and ODAC, which I hope that people will start recognizing and saying, our school district's doing that. This school board, before I was on it, authorized a lot of new, this summer we authorized a bunch of AEDs. Summer last year, fall, a bunch of AEDs. So there's now extra AEDs at every middle school. I'm saying that you can do CPR all you want. But without an AED, you don't get that heart started. So you'll see me posting a lot of stuff about that this month. Head Start, that volunteers in schools. And I'm going to ask, and it's sort of on the spot, it's new news, but I'm going to ask that sometime in the next month or two we take a look at, the news has KU Med acquiring Olathe Med. And Olathe Med provides our athletic trainers in our schools as a great partnership with them. I would love if you, I know you probably didn't know, but that was coming, is somewhere in the next month or two as that evolves, is give us an update of what does that mean? What does that mean for our staff and supporting our athletics? Because those people are amazing athletic trainers, and I want to make sure that as much as we can figure out that we advocate for them to stay partnered with us if we can.
Yeah, I had a conversation the other day with Stan Holm, President and CEO of Olathe Health, and he certainly will be in touch with us and keep us updated. It will probably take a little while as the two organizations work through their due diligence. So I'm not optimistic that we'll, have anything official in the next month or so, but certainly I know, at least in talking to him, there's an eagerness to continue to support the good work that's happening in our district. They're also a great support of our foundation, that kind of thing. But as we know more, learn more, we'll definitely bring that to you all.
Thank you.
Others?
Yeah, I had a couple things. I wanted to say it's been a long month between meetings because our September meeting was on the 1st, and of course it's the 6th. But shortly after our last meeting, some of you probably remember or know Ralph Dennis, who was a 43-year employee of Olathe District, and he turned 96 after our September meeting. So I just want to say happy birthday to Ralph Dennis, and if you don't know him, you're really missing out. But what a great guy he was. He still is a great guy, but he didn't turn 96. So happy birthday, Mr. D. Also, I make a habit of tuning into area BOE meetings and learn a lot from them. But I also tune into the State Board of Ed meeting. And so if you're interested, you can do that through their YouTube channel or on their website and learn a lot. This past month, they kind of focused on graduation requirements and how they're looking at that, as well as the new multiplier that they're applying that was voted on to private schools for competing in sports. So anyway, they have a 2-day meeting. It's about 11 hours of meetings. So you can kind of, I like on YouTube, you can kind of do the slider and listen to the parts you want, but it's important information. I also attended the Olathe Boys and Girls Club Advisory Council meeting with Dr. McMullen, and that's housed at Center of Grace in the center of downtown Olathe, and they're looking to increase their numbers of their teen club. It's an after-school program, and the feeders into that are Oregon Trail and Olathe North, and so I just throw that out there that they're looking for ideas and ways to elicit interest from those two schools in particular. And it's amazing. They've got a really great young, cool guy that's kind of heading that organization up there at Center of Grace. And they've got a new facility that's awesome. And so anyway, I throw that out there if you, and he's meeting with those principals. So he's got ins to the schools, but we just really want to see that club grow, and the kids that would participate there would just be incredibly blessed by it. So they've got the space. We just need the kids to get excited about going. I also participate in a Leadership for Tomorrow through KASB, and we go across about once a month, somewhere different in Kansas. And I have to tell you, there is amazing things happening in Kansas in education for kids. And I'm a little jealous because nobody really other than Wichita is quite as big as we are. And so size can be a wonderful thing. It can also kind of be a hindrance. Sometimes when I see the awesome things happening, I think, oh, how could we do that in Olathe? And there's bits and pieces I bring back to Dr. Yeager, and we kind of massage it and talk about it. But there is just, we have a great state in how we think about educating kids. And so it's been really awesome. Last, I had a parent meeting at Pour Coffee House that was just amazing. And anybody that wants to meet, I'm always here for that. And then I attended our first ever SPED committee meeting. So thank you, Ann Jeanette. That was awesome. Glad to be starting that. So good things happening in Olathe. So thank you.
2 quick shout outs. Shannon.
Shout out Shannon?
No.
Oh, okay.
Shannon is ready to move on.
Yeah, I know he is. He's been really for a while. He's doing really good, by the way, yeah.
So that's why I preface with my 2 quick shout outs.
Okay, got it.
Take your time, Mr. Boyd.
I'm gonna put on my dad hat for a second. So you might enjoy this, I don't know. I am incredibly fulfilled and happy and just full of joy to be back in schools. As a dad, I had the chance yesterday to spend an hour at Indian Creek Elementary with my 8-year-old. They had a program called Father Figures where they brought together parents and guardians, and we just played games for an hour, and it was just fantastic. And while the kids were out on water breaks, the facilitator would bring the parents together in a circle and just talk to us about how important it is to just play with your kids. And when you see them run back in, you see the joy on their face and how they light up. You forget it's the small things that really matters to kids. So want to shout out to Dr. Julie Schlatter and her team at Indian Creek. And then our PTO program at Indian Creek is doing really fantastic things. They're up and coming, starting, but they are really doing some cool parent engagement, community engagement activities. So if you want to just see some really cool stuff, reach out to the PTO president at Indian Creek, and she has some awesome ideas to share with you all.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm gonna make Shannon happy and give you some advice here. So enjoy that time, because I volunteer sometimes in the lunchroom in my middle school classroom, and my son will literally starve to death as opposed to get lunch from his dad. So he'll sit there and not eat anything. So he is with me.
Is it an internet issue or?
So enjoy.
That's awesome. Okay. Seeing no others, I'll turn it over to Dr. Yeager for superintendent comments.
Mr. Kuhn, my first comment is to show appreciation to you. Thank you. I know Shannon felt the same way tonight. A few quick comments tonight. The first one, you all have probably seen in the world the increase in really tragic events around fentanyl affecting our young people. I'm really proud that our district started having Narcan, which is the antidote essentially to fentanyl, in our secondary schools in 2019. We, have had that thanks to Dr. Gilliland and her crew for quite a while at those levels. But as you probably see if you're watching the news, is that's now impacting elementary age kids, and certainly not intentionally, but with fentanyl is being put in a way that looks like Skittles and candies and things like that. So I'm pleased to share with you all that in our community, this is all fairly, I think we have a communications plan for it. So it won't be a secret for much longer, but by the end of the month, we'll have Narcan in all of our elementary schools, all of our support buildings, everywhere in the district. And, we really hope that that's something we don't need to use. But for our students who would happen to be in that situation, it's a quick nasal spray that literally can save their lives. So anyway, just wanted to let you all know that that's happening. Next week is our first teacher conferences of the school year. It's hard to believe we're already here, but we are. So I just want to thank all of our staff for all their tremendous hard work to get ready to have those important conversations with our community about our young people and what they're doing well in school right now, where they need some support, and also how our staff and parents and guardians can work together to support our kids. So that will be happening next week as well. I was going to call out the yearly health report, but I feel like we've covered that pretty well tonight. So thank you very much for that information. And as you all said, to our school nurses for the road that they drive every day and the work that they do. It's very important. I did want to comment also briefly tonight about the substitute challenge that we have. It's interesting as you listen to the challenges that we have in our district. They literally are the challenges happening across our nation. We're representative of what's happening across our nation. And while it's hard when your classroom's the classroom that's not filled and those kinds of things, very certainly we are faring better than most, which is a true testament to our HR team, Shelley Longstreth, and her team as well. Just since the start of school this year, we've oriented over 120 new substitutes in our system, which is our community stepping up to help our schools, which is pretty impressive. I will say too with that, not that we want to compare ourselves against our neighbors, but our daily fill rate is among the best. Even those that would do it within house and those that also outsource to a staffing agency. So again, that just symbolizes our community coming together to try to fill in as much as they can for our schools, the great work of HR, and certainly our teachers, which doesn't go into our fill rate, and our staff that does, as one of our public speakers said earlier tonight, covers classes, splits classes, all those things. Those things are very real. So again, I would just say to anybody that happens to be tuning in, we'd love to have you as a substitute. Sign up and we'll take great care of you. We give you a little bottle of Olathe customized hand wipes when you come to orientation. I'm not sure what the message is with that, but I guess it's that if you get messy at lunch, you have hand wipes. So anyway, the substitute thing is real, and anything we can do to support our schools that way is appreciated. I'd also like to mention that this is Principal Appreciation Month. I spent some time with our administrators earlier this week, and we have incredible administrators in Olathe. And, as I was thinking about this as I was driving today, principals are literally on call 24 hours a day. There's some of us that's kind of an expectation with our job, but, I was remembering back to when I was a principal and, somebody unfortunately left the front door unlocked and the police checked it at 2:00 in the morning. You were the person that got the call to drive over to the school to lock the door, or the student whose family wasn't able to get them to a dentist appointment and the family gave you permission to take them so they could get the dental care that they needed. Or the drive to some kiddo's house because you haven't seen them in a couple days and you haven't been able to make contact and knocking the door. Or the student that needs help with their homework because they didn't get it done, and they show up in your office and they're in crisis because they didn't get their homework done. Or the principal that sits next to a staff member when they lose their spouse or their child. You know, it's pretty incredible when you think about what our principals do on a daily basis, none of which are limited. You know, they are truly doing amazing things every day to meet the needs of our kids and our staff and our communities, and they do it because they love it. And I'm so proud of that group. So I just wanted to call that out tonight as well. And then in terms of people I'm proud of, I also wanted to ask my good friend Maggie Kolb to stand up tonight. You probably know tonight is Maggie's last official Board of Education meeting with us. Maggie has done an incredible job leading our communications and community relations work for the past 11 years. Maggie and I came to the district office at the same time, so we grew up together here in many ways. So I'm going to certainly, like all of us, miss a terrific colleague, but also miss a great friend and somebody who also cares very deeply about Olathe. And just wanted tonight to say thank you, Maggie, and we wish you all the best the world has to offer. So. That's it.
Executive session for,
20 minutes.
okay. I would seek a motion that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing salary benefits and related items of the bargaining unit pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA, that the board return to the regular meeting at 8 p.m. in this room.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Felter and a second by Mr. Boyd.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Beveridge?
Yes.
Mr. Q?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
Mrs. Felter?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Wycliffe?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0.